Chapter 251, Becoming a Famous Person. Mount Ortiz was at an altitude high above sea level and was covered in clouds all year round. The Dark Mando headquarters were situated right in the middle of the mountain's belly, guarded by all sorts of experts. The security here was even more strict than the Empire's palace. Han Shao passed through the entrance using the magical transportation matrix. Identity badge in hand, he moved without impediment deep into the mountain belly. After a few turns he arrived at the transportation matrix leading to Candide's place. Wait a bit, Lord Candide is currently not in the headquarters. I'll go to notify him. The Lord should come back in a short while. Only at this point did the Dark Star guide who'd led Han Shao to Candide's place from the transportation matrix explain it ain't neither fast nor slow pace. Is that so? Alright. Han Shao nodded in understanding. Then I'll take you to the waiting area and notify you immediately when Lord Candide returns. The Dark Star envoy also nodded, then spun on the transportation matrix. A white light flashed and Han Shao appeared in a wide square stone chamber that was as big as 4 basketball courts combined. There were many soft chairs and tables set up with dazzling displays of various fruit desserts plus some books on the table. Many people of different appearances surrounded these places patiently, either eating or flipping through the books on the tables, seemingly also waiting. Except for the transportation matrix where Han Shao was standing, soft carpet covered the surrounding ground. A dozen or so glass lanterns hung above, lighting up the entire stone chamber. Hey, hello there, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here? A short-haired young and pretty girl stood in front of Han Shao, cheerfully greeting him. It's my first time here. How do you do? Han Shao walked towards this lively young girl with a smile on his face, intent on learning about news within the Dark Mantle headquarters. I'm Chrissy, a fire journeyman mage. Currently I'm a rank 3 Dark Star. Nice to meet you. This girl named Chrissy was quite talkative. She smiled at Han Shao and warmly greeted him in a familiar manner. I'm Brian, also a rank 3 Dark Star like you. I'm a necromancer. Han Shao smiled as he walked towards Chrissy and introduced himself. However, last time he'd left Balan City for the Valley of Sunshine, Han Shao had already known from Emily that his rank was already Dark Moon. However, since Candide was in charge of Han Shao, only he could upgrade Han Shao's badge to officially confirm his rank as a Dark Moon. Han Shao hadn't reported for a half year already, so although he'd advanced to the rank of Dark Moon, it had yet to be made official. So you're also a rank 3 Dark Star. Which lord are you following? Chrissy giggled and pulled up a chair for Han Shao. Chrissy, you're on the bench with no missions. Why must you keep chatting up random people? Are you trying to harm them? A robust journeyman swordsman next to Chrissy rolled his eyes. Alice, what nonsense are you spouting? Who wants to harm people? Chrissy abruptly turned around, huffing and glaring at that journeyman swordsman. Yet you still deny it. You fire mages make a mess of everything. On our last mission you burnt half the village, throwing my mission down the drain. The boss furiously lectured me. I'm already miserable thanks to you, so don't go around harming others. Alice wryly smiled, shaking his head. He turned to Han Shao and winked as if telling him to be careful. Han Shao lifted his head and grinned with goodwill, then wrinkled his brow to read the book in his hand. As it turned out, the books on the tables were actually the latest secret intelligence reports circulating internally in the Dark Mantle. They included everything in the most recent period, such as news on every aspect of the Empire. The topics ranged from large ones such as frontier battles to the small petty gossip about some aristocrat sidewalks. With Han Shao's current brain capacity, he only needed to flip through a book once to memorize its contents. He didn't care about the small petty gossip, but those regarding Balan City and the Valley of Sunshine caught his attention. One highlight was the Griffin Legion's chief Bob Asher betraying the Empire. According to the intelligence network of the Dark Mantle, Bob Asher had long since colluded with the KC Empire. After betraying the Empire, Bob Asher had led a group of trusted confidants to join the KC Empire and became one of its senior military officers. Han Shao's name once again appeared in the Dark Mantle's intelligence network. According to the books, it was due to Han Shao and Emily's efforts that Bob Asher's misdeeds were exposed. After receiving the two's report, the Dark Mantle arrived at Balan City at the fastest speed possible. They took advantage of Bob not yet erupting in rebellion to put the situation back under control. Otherwise, if Bob Asher has been allowed to abuse his power and creates holes in the defenses of Balan City for the KC Empire, who was eyeing the city like a hungry tiger to invade the city would have fallen quickly. Unknowingly, Han Shao as a rank 3 Dark Star had become a rising star within the Dark Mantle. Han Shao's description was attached within, and it even included his first mission where he'd uncovered the plot of Wind Archmage Duke from the Casey Empire. In addition, this intel also included news regarding the chaos in the Valley of Sunshine. The 4 strongest forces endlessly fighting covertly and openly, leading to daily bloodshed. This time even the Butcher and Janet's strong forces seemed to have entered the fray, joining the struggle for power in the Valley of Sunshine. Amongst them, the Soul Destroyer mercenary band founded by Han Shao and Trunks was gradually emerging from the fray. Under Trunks' charisma along with plentiful resources, they had taken advantage of the disarray to attract experts to join their mercenary band. Since the Soul Destroyer mercenary band was appearing in the internal intelligence of the Dark Mantle, it showed the band already had some standing. As Han Shao concentrated on the book in his hands, Chrissy stood in front of him and asked again, "Right, Brian, which lord do you follow?" I follow Lord Candide." Han Shao put the book down and lifted his head smilingly to answer Chrissy. "Lord Candide, but you're only a rank 3 Dark Star. How could you possibly be following Lord Candide? Your name is Brian. Can it be that you're that Brian?" "Oh my gosh." Chrissy shook her head in confusion at first, then suddenly remembered something. She looked at Han Shao and shouted with surprise. When the patiently waiting members around them heard Chrissy's shout, they all put down their fruits or books and looked at Han Shao in astonishment. "He's Brian? So young. What a lucky young fellow for Lord Candide to fancy him. It would be hard for him not to be promoted quickly even if he doesn't want to be. His looks really don't disappoint. If I can go on a mission with him, it would be such a sweet thing." Chatter erupted from the surrounding members who happened to be idle at the moment. All sorts of astonishment, admiration and odd looks were projected at Han Shao. "Oh my gosh, my luck is really not bad. Brian, if you have any mission that requires more people, can you please take me?" "Don't listen to that brat Alice nonsense. I'm a fine fire journeyman mage. I promise I won't be a burden to you." Chrissy immediately recovered after exclaiming in surprise. She grabbed at the corner of Han Shao's clothes and begged pitifully, "Brian, Lord Candide has returned. Please go to the transportation matrix." A transportation member next to the matrix suddenly announced in a loud voice, "If I need more people, I will consider you." "See you." The clothes that Chrissy had grabbed onto slipped out of her fingers like oil as Han Shao twisted his body. After flashing her a friendly smile, he stood in the transportation matrix in front of the crowd's surprised looks. A white light flashed and Han Shao appeared in Candide's personal room. The old man had a gloomy expression on his face as always. Looking at Han Shao without showing any particular expression, he only said in a low voice, "I remember telling you long ago that even if you don't have a mission, you still have to report back in the Dark Mantle headquarters once a month. You brat disappeared for a half year, no discipline at all." "I was honestly delayed by some things. I came into the possession of something in the past half year that I think Lord Candide will be very interested in." Han Shao's expression didn't change. He smiled faintly and responded. Whether it was Han Shao's strength or experience, both were greatly different from the past. After half a year, the growth of his strength and experience had all greatly accelerated and all aspects were significantly developed. Han Shao didn't feel any fear even in front of such a powerful figure like Candide, and instead spoke to him as if speaking to a friend of the same status. "You really are different compared to before." Old Fox Candide apparently saw through his changes. He gave Han Shao a stunned look for a while, then flashed a weird smile. "What things? Will I be interested?" Han Shao took out the handwritten notebook he had obtained from the Forbidden Land. It didn't have any substantial knowledge on magic, only some experiences along with some obscure understanding of dark magic from Mike Cotton. Han Shao had already copied a portion of the magic texts written in it. He had intended to give it to Emily along with the magic staff since she practiced dark magic. After careful consideration, Han Shao had decided it would be best to hand over the notebook to Dark Grand Magus Candide. Since Han Shao couldn't fully understand the magic texts, the reflections on dark magic from Mike's notebook were useless to him. In addition, from his multiple points of contact with Candide, Han Shao felt that this old suspicion suspiciously crafty-looking fellow was actually truly protective of him. Giving this notebook to Candide would definitely bring about great benefits and a good feature in the Dark Mantle. You take a look. Han Shao smiled mysteriously before handing the ancient handwritten notebook to Dark Grand Magus Candide in a ceremonious manner. What is this? It does seem to have some history. Candide took the handwritten notebook and said with uncertainty. After his eyes caught a small row of letters, he was immediately dumbfounded. His eyes and mouth were wide opened as if he were struck by lightning. That small row of letters read Mike Cotton. Candide was one of the 3 heavyweights of the Dark Mantle and had the power of a Grand Magus, but his 2 hands couldn't stop trembling when he held the notebook. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His face revealed an extremely shocked expression. This state lasted for a few seconds until Candide suddenly turned his eyes to stare at Han Shao and asked with a trembling voice, Is this? Han Shao nodded his head and confirmed, that's right. This is the notebook of the legendary Dark Mage of the Lancelot Empire, the demigod Mike Cotton. Candide was ecstatic upon hearing these words. He wouldn't stop trembling like crazy. His mouth muttered something that Han Shao couldn't make sense of. As for Candide's 2 eyes, they wouldn't leave the notebook. His trembling hands flipped the pages one by one, his whole body falling into a sluggish state. This continued for a long time until Candide sighed out, too unfathomable, too wondrous. The value of this notebook is simply immeasurable. After he uttered these words, Candide took a few more deep breaths. Waiting until he calmed down from his excitement, he looked at Han Shao with shining eyes and asked with some hesitation, What do you mean in bringing this notebook to me? Shrugging, Han Shao chuckled, I'm giving it to you, obviously. Bribery. Damn brat, this is despicable bribery, Candide exclaimed, but then he suddenly shook his head and then quickly nodded. Forget it, I want to accept this even if it's bribery. Using some force to smooth down his hair, Candide spoke somewhat blankly, Alright, I'll take it. What's your condition? Han Shao shook his head and said smilingly, No conditions. This thing originally belonged to the Empire. You are my boss and me handing it over to you can't be considered bribery. You shouldn't worry about it. Ha ha, right, this is the notebook of Mike Cotton, so of course it belongs to the Empire. I, Candide, am one of the few Dark Grand Magi of the Empire. As long as I explain a bit of this to His Majesty the King, he will definitely allow me to read it, so how can this be bribery? Candide muttered to himself and laughed loudly. Then he swiftly flew in front of Han Shao and clapped the latter's shoulder with appreciation. Good going, brat, really not bad. You did a meritorious deed again. I remember that you're already a 1-star Dark Moon. Give me your badge, I'll immediately promote you to a 4-star Dark Moon. To have found the relics of Mike Cotton, no one would dare to say anything against you, jumping up 2 ranks. Lucky little brat, you are becoming legendary at climbing ranks in the Dark Mantle. Chapter 252. A high rank. Han Shao was overjoyed upon hearing that his rank had jumped up by 2 ranks. He quickly handed his iron identity badge over to Candide. The Dark Mantle organization existed on an enormous scale, holding various resources of the Empire. Candide and the other 2 heavyweights held power that placed them under 1 person and above 10,000s. No one could afford to overlook them. As one was promoted here, they could enjoy even greater benefits and could use their power to acquire the latest information that was not yet been known to others. Holding Han Shao's badge, Candide couldn't conceal his excitement as he went back to his seat. He changed the rank indicated on the badge before handing it back to Han Shao. The stars on the back of the iron badge had disappeared, replaced by 4 crescent moons. Many thanks, Lord Candide. Han Shao glanced at the badge and placed it back into his space ring. He smiled and thanked Candide. Candide spread his hands, the odd smile still hanging on his face. His mood was great as he laughed joyfully. No need to thank me. This is the reward you deserved. You brat are very good. It hasn't even been a year since you joined and you're already a rank 4 Dark Moon. What a miracle. This was just thanks to my good luck and also Master's promotion. Han Shao wasn't arrogant or cocky as he replied humbly. Alright you little bootlicker of a brat. Candide laughed loudly as he hectored a bit. Then he raised his brows and looked sharply. I want to know all the details of how you came across this handwritten notebook. Han Shao knew early on that Candide would carefully question this matter, so he'd already prepared a story. He briefly described the situation at the Forbidden Land, hiding what needed to be hidden, and said what he could say. Han Shao gave the credit of lifting the confining force completely to the Cyclops and Gold Dragon, saying only that he was extremely lucky. He said only after the two big creatures left did he enter the Forbidden Land and obtain the handwritten notebook. Candide was amazed after Han Shao had finished. He murmured, "I didn't expect the legendary Forbidden Land to be so strange that no one would be able to leave. Now that it's lost that power of imprisonment, it's still simply unbelievable. Could it be that demigod Armike died there? There is something weird about this. I carefully swept over that area once. After the two super rank creatures left, there was nothing left except for the tombstone. Even if you have someone go to investigate, I'm afraid there is nothing left to discover." When leaving the Forbidden Land, Han Shao had erased all traces that had been left behind in it. Even if Candide really sent someone there, they wouldn't find anything. "Is that so?" Candide said softly, and continued, "However, I should still send someone to investigate. This is related to the deity Armike, so it shouldn't be dealt with carelessly. I think His Majesty would do the same. Up to you. I'm not going to go back there. I've just returned from that place and didn't find anything after searching every nook and cranny." Han Shao appeared uninterested in this mission as he shrugged his arms in seeming laziness. "Up to you. If you don't want to, then I'll just find someone else." Candide glanced at Han Shao and didn't nag him. He gave Han Shao a puzzled look, then said, "Right, if you don't have anything there, why keep running into that dark forest? That area isn't for ordinary folk to enter." Hey, not answering this question is also my right, isn't it? Han Shao laughed shamelessly because he knew that the Dark Mantle couldn't pry into the members' private matters. Glaring at Han Shao, Candide helplessly waved his hand and said, forget it. You already brought back this item, so I don't care for your private matters. In giving me this handwritten notebook, you've already done a deed of great merit, publicly speaking, and so I owe you a big favor, privately speaking." "That's great." Han Shao laughed joyfully, then inquired, "MHM good?" "I've already reported, and so if there's nothing else, then I'll be leaving. First, I still have some other things to deal with." Wait. Candide stopped him, then murmured, "I've actually prepared a mission for you, but you brat could even come back alive from the depths of the dark forest, and you're a necromancy adept mage now. This simple mission seems unsuitable for you now." "Well, I have three that are a little more difficult. The first is to go to Balthazar City and assassinate a traitor called Angel. This traitor has an official role in Balthazar City, so all of his acts appear to be legitimate, so we can only assassinate him in order to avoid troubles. The second is to go to the Bimson City in the north of the Empire. It's said that someone stored a large amount of weapons within the barren hills around the city. We need to send someone to investigate this. The third mission is to guard someone you know, Prince Lawrence. Even though his identity hasn't officially been recognized, I think you already know of it. This third mission was personally issued by His Majesty the King. Although he's already arranged some of his own men, the King is still worried that it's not enough. You can participate if you're interested." Assessing the matter a bit, Han Shao believed that there was still some danger on Phoebe's side. He'd just returned to the Empire and still had a lot of things that he needed to handle, so he couldn't leave immediately. Han Shao said, "Alright, I choose the third mission. I'm already familiar with Lawrence anyway, so protecting him is killing two birds with one stone. Then it's up to you. However, Lawrence's identity is special, so you have to tread carefully to avoid bringing trouble upon yourself." Candide had long reminded Han Shao to deal with Lawrence properly. He once again advised this when Han Shao accepted the mission, explaining that it would even be more intense once the princes began their fight for power. "Rest assured, I understand." Han Shao nodded in understanding. Then he hesitated for a moment and asked Master Candide, "What kind of person is this Duke Ashburn?" Candide was surprised for a moment and stared at Han Shao suspiciously. "Why, does he want to recruit you?" Shaking his head, Han Shao said in a low voice, "That's not it. I think I may have offended him, so I reckon that he won't let me off easily." Shocked, Candide said with a darkened expression, "Politically speaking, Grand Duke Ashburn is the Empire's Minister of Operations. generations. His younger sister is the queen, so he is the uncle of the eldest son, Prince Charles. This person is violent, always seeks revenge for his grievances. He reigns over a large amount of death-sworn warriors, relying on his position and the covert support of the queen to murder many of his political enemies. You must be careful after offending him. Are you afraid of him? Han Shuo was silent for a while before he suddenly asked. Rolling his eyes at Han Shuo, Candide said, "It's not that I'm afraid of him, but more that I don't wish to recklessly provoke him either. You already know that our dark mantle is the king's hand in the shadows. Everything we do represents the king. Particularly us three rank 5 dark sons are directly under his charge. When the king is still healthy, no one can do anything to us. Even Ashburn has to tread carefully, preventing us from grasping his weak points. However, once His Majesty the King abdicates and the power shifts, if the new king nullifies our authority, Ashburn won't have any more scruples about moving against us. Do you understand?" Nodding, Han Shuo said in a low voice, "I understand." "All right, I'm going to find Lawrence then." Han Shuo immediately set off after speaking. Candide suddenly spoke up just when he was about to leave. "You are one of mine, and as you are now a rank 4 Dark Moon, even if Ashburn wants to deal with you, he'll have to be cautious." Hey, since I've received the handwritten notebook of Ermike, this time I'll help you in moment of need. "Thank you." Han Shuo turned his head and sincerely thanked Candide, then left the room, leaving Mount Ordes through transportation matrices. Han Shuo headed for the House of Finance Ministry. He intended to ask about how Lawrence was getting along and how things were on his side. "I'm Brian. I've come to call upon Lawrence. Please notify those within for me." Han Shuo smiled at the guard after arriving at Lawrence's house. Han Shuo had long been aware that the clothes made the man. He was adorned in a perfectly tailored blue warrior outfit, the collar trimmed with several precious stone fragments. While Han Shuo looked capable and alert, the confident smile on his face made him appear even more uncommon. The guard, who normally looked down on folks, realized that this was an exceptional person. He didn't dare to make things difficult for Han Shuo and respectfully said, "Please wait a moment," and quickly went inside. Lawrence personally came out not long afterwards. He already started laughing heartily before reaching Han Shuo. "You finally returned. I came to look for you at the necromancy department several times already." Several unfamiliar faces walked behind Lawrence. Each possessed extraordinarily calm bearings. They were evidently experts with great skills. What Candide had said wasn't wrong indeed. Lawrence was exceedingly cautious about his safety. "All right, nothing should happen in broad daylight. You guys can stop following me." Lawrence turned his head to say this after walking out. He then strode quickly toward Han Shuo and gave the latter a warm hug, saying, "Why have you suddenly remembered to come looking for me?" "I actually didn't remember to look for you, just that I was tasked with a mission, and so that's why I came," Han Shuo explained honestly as he smiled dryly at Lawrence. Lawrence was stunned and then laughed out loud. "So that's why." "It doesn't matter, it's good that you've come. Come with me. We can find a comfortable place to chat." Lawrence dragged Han Shuo along, making straight for the carriage at the entrance. Seeing that Lawrence was coming, the normally lazy coachman immediately became extremely spirited. He hastily ran to the side and lifted the curtains for Lawrence to enter. The unfamiliar experts spread out, either blatantly or covertly, following behind, carefully ensuring the prince's safety. "Go to the rose garden at the north workshop," Lawrence ordered the coachman as soon as they had settled down. "What's that?" Han Shuo was practically dragged into the carriage by Lawrence. He couldn't help but ask after the carriage started to move. Hey, you'll know when we get there. Don't concern yourself so much. Tell me, where did you go to mess around after we parted ways?" Lawrence smiled mysteriously, asking Han Shuo. "Nothing much, I just stayed idle in the Valley of Sunshine for a while, then went to the dark forest to kill some magical beasts." Han Shuo smiled slightly. He responded effortlessly and concealed everything. "It can't be that simple. I heard from junior sister Phoebe that you did some stunning things in the Valley of Sunshine." Hey, you guys made such a mess at the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band. "Did you really think I'm that ignorant?" Lawrence made Mayday, you don't consider me your brother face. He squinted his eyes and curled his lip at Han Sha-oh. He it was really nothing. Speaking of your junior sister Phoebe, you are her senior brother and yet you don't know anything. Her merchant guild was insulted and bullied and you actually didn't help her? Han Sha-oh wrinkled his brows, reflecting the blame back onto Lawrence. Lawrence paused and was surprised by these words. He then furrowed his brow and asked with puzzlement what happened. Han Sha-oh looked carefully at Lawrence and hesitated. He asked in surprise, you don't know? This junior sister of mine doesn't like owing anyone favors. Whenever something happens she never wants to bother others. I know her temper, so I just didn't know what exactly happened. Lawrence replied frankly. It's like this Cameron's Merchants Alliance wanted to acquire the Boost Merchant Guild. Cameron seems to be backed by Duke Ashburn and almost captured Phoebe in the guild. Han Sha-oh's face was cold and grave as he responded. Suddenly furious, Lawrence slammed his hand on the carriage. He coldly snorted. Ashburn seems to spare no effort for Charles, huh? Such despicable means. Stopping for a moment, Lawrence heaved a long sigh. Oh Phoebe, really? I could have helped her with this, but she still won't confide in me. If it wasn't for you I wouldn't have even known had she been taken over by Cameron's Merchant Alliance. Thanks to the Dark Mantle's intelligence network, Han Sha-oh had a general understanding of Lawrence's abilities. He also knew that Lawrence's men in the Griffin Legion had taken complete control of Holland City and had now become the new chief of the Griffin Legion. Moreover, if Lawrence won the favor of the king, then his identity as the prince could be officially recognized. As such, he would have hopes in becoming king. Brian, you offended Ashburn this time. It looks like even if we didn't want to be good friends it'd be hard not to. Lawrence looked deeply at Han Sha-oh and said, I currently have a good position for you. If you wish I can help you quickly obtain a high rank in the army. This also wouldn't conflict with your identity in the Dark Mantle. What do you think? Chapter 253, Paving the Way. This was a very tempting suggestion, so Han Sha-oh was immediately interested. However, he didn't instantly agree either. Instead he said, as you know, I'm a member of the Dark Mantle. Furthermore, I have a lot of things that I myself need to do as well, so I don't have that much time that I can spend on the military. I think that won't be a problem. You're a mage, so you naturally should have plenty of your own time. As long as you gain the title of Duke and your own land, then you are free to do with your time as you see fit, as long as there are no issues within the territory you rule. Lawrence immediately responded as if he had been prepared for his answer. Then what do you want me to do? Han Sha-oh was momentarily confused, then asked as he looked towards Lawrence in confusion. I'll help you gain a place in the military first. As long as you've made enough contributions, I can use my relationships to help you gain the identity of a noble. Once you receive the title of a duke, then I'll help you lay your hands on some territory. Everything will be good as long as your territory develops well. Lawrence seemed to be very familiar with this sort of thing as he started explaining everything to Han Sha-oh with a smile. When he'd left Ballin City, Han Sha-oh knew that his fortunes would be tied with Lawrence sooner or later. With his current strength and the existence of the Cemetery of Death, Han Sha-oh believed that he would be able to leave unscathed even if Lawrence lost the struggle for power. If he wanted to climb higher, he would have to depend on a person that could help him. Lawrence was definitely a suitable candidate. He was someone who'd gained the king's affection and also held some power. Additionally, with the aid of Candide, Han Sha-oh believed that it wouldn't be too long before he gained power. It looks like we truly are going to be tied together. Han Sha-oh smiled and said to Lawrence. Lawrence laughed happily, then said with pride, we were on the same side since ages ago. Ever since I went back to the Empire, I started helping you pave your path. Now that you've graduated from the necromancy department and so swiftly at that, things have become even more convenient for me. Han Sha-oh couldn't help but be shocked after hearing him say that. He hadn't thought that even Lawrence would receive news so quickly that he'd graduated. Apart from Candide, it seemed like the two really did pay a lot of attention to him. Alright, I'll let you in on some of the details, then we'll go over the plan. With your strength and intelligence, I think that you reaching new heights in the Empire won't be a difficult thing, as as long as we cooperate with each other." Lawrence was clearly very happy as he said excitedly to Han Shao. Afterwards Han Shao and Lawrence discussed within the carriage for a long time, forming a bright path for the two of them between their schemes. The carriage stopped after a long while. The carriage driver said with a low voice, "Young Master Lawrence, we've arrived at the Rose Garden in the Northern Workshops." "All right, I need to welcome you properly upon your rare return. Come, let's go in and enjoy ourselves," Lawrence said to Han Shao after lifting the curtains and jumping down the carriage. Han Shao raised his head and looked around. When he alighted, he saw a grand building in front of him with roses engraved on the walls made from white marble. At the same time he also saw numerous beautiful carriages parked all around. Meanwhile the experts that had been following Lawrence walked over from a corner of the streets and stood behind him like guards. "You guys stay out here. There won't be any problems inside the Rose Garden, so don't worry." Lawrence turned his head back to look at the people, then ordered faintly, "Sorry young Master Lawrence, we're just following orders. We have to protect you wherever you go." A rather loyal knight wearing heavy armor responded with a muffled voice. Han Shao was able to feel an intense killing aura from this knight. The symbol on his chest plate showed that he was an Earth Rider. From the calluses on his large hands it was clear that he was someone who shouldn't be messed with. "Gino, we're only going in to relax. Nothing usually happens in the Rose Garden normally. How can we go in together since you're all wearing armor? Why don't you stay outside?" Lawrence continued to smile without getting angry at the Earth Rider for being determined. "No, orders are orders. We cannot defy our orders." The Earth Rider named Gino was a stubborn person and once again rejected Lawrence with a stern face. He then all right. I have no issues with it if you guys can go in." Lawrence chuckled lightly, then pulled Han Shao inside. When he reached the entrance he cast a look at the guard with his eyes, then rushed in while tugging on Han Shao. Gino and the others followed, but they were forcefully stopped when they reached the entrance. The guards refused to let them in no matter how much they tried to explain. Han Shao knew through the unit demon's surveillance that the protectors out in the open had been left outside by Lawrence. However, the hidden guards being led by Lucky were trying their best to sneak into the Rose Garden through various other methods. However, the defenses of this Rose Garden were astonishingly good. It was protected by experts openly and covertly. These included powerful swordsmen and mages specializing in different elements. These people were rather powerful and protected the surroundings with great responsibility. Aside from the old assassin Lucky who'd managed to sneak in, all of the other experts had been stopped outside. Han Shao noticed that this Rose Garden occupied a great deal of land through usage of his Yun demon's surveillance. There were numerous artificial mountains, flowing water, hot springs with pavilions within, and every single room was decorated in an extremely opulent manner. There was a beautiful woman in revealing clothing who was tripping as she twisted her hips and danced a mesmerizing dance within one of the large halls. Suppressed moans rang out from several slightly smaller rooms as many noble lords and young masters spent enormous amounts of money here to enjoy all sorts of services. Lawrence seemed to be extremely familiar with this sort of place as he walked straight and familiarly. All of the openly stationed and hidden guards recognized Lawrence. Not only did no one stop him, they often greeted him. "I know what this place is now." Since the three Yin demons had swiftly circled the extremely large Rose Garden, Han Shao couldn't help but blurt out after he understood what sort of place this was. "Haha, all men should know what kind of place this is. All of the expenditures here today are on me, so just treat it as me welcoming you back." Lawrence laughed frankly as he walked straight in and arrived within a wide hall. There were young and beautiful women dancing at the center of the hall, with some people that were either rich or noble watching from the sidelines. When they saw Lawrence come in, they also greeted him with smiles. There were many soft animal skin chairs around the hall alongside fresh vegetables, exquisite snacks, and glasses of expensive alcohol costing a gold coin each. A large circular chandelier with a 5-meter diameter shone down upon the scene with ambiguous light, causing the women dancing to the light-hearted music underneath it to appear extremely sexy. "Hey Lawrence, you haven't come in a long time." A guy who was clearly a fop of a rich family greeted Lawrence as the former led in a thinly covered woman exuding sexiness. "Bruno, why do I see you every time I come here?" Lawrence casually picked up a wine glass filled with amber wine from a table laden with numerous other drinks. He responded to this weakling dandy after taking a sip of wine. "Life is just that boring. There are only some places in the Northern Workshops that spark spark my interest. That's why I come over here. Isn't it the same for you? Bruno winked towards Lawrence and said meaningfully. Alright, I came here purely to entertain my friend. I won't chat too much with you this time, so let's have a good discussion next time. Lawrence apologized, then dragged Han Shao across the hall into another quiet place. Lawrence had brought Han Shao through a corridor, around a few corners, and into another quiet hall. After a few moments, there wasn't anyone in this hall, but there was a magic barrier around it. Lawrence took out a magic scroll and chanted a spell. The magic scroll emitted out a hazy azure light, and the surrounding walls cracked open under the light. Lawrence turned around and indicated for Han Shao to enter with him. Han Shao was shocked as he looked at the pathway under the light. He asked, since he was clearly befuddled, it's very normal for a place like this to have a secret passageway, but why do you know about it? Of course I would know about it, because I am the true owner of the Rose Garden. Brian, since we are being honest with each other, I won't hide this secret from you. Lawrence laughed, then pulled Han Shao inside. There were quite a few magical seals along the corridor that extended towards the very bottom. There were a lot of things that made Han Shao surprised about this hidden place. However, what shocked Han Shao the most was that the true owner of this gold mine was Lawrence. No wonder Candide had said that Lawrence wasn't simple during their first meeting. It seemed that he did know quite a lot of things about Lawrence. Come, I'll take you to meet Phoebe and my master. I think that he must be very interested in you. Lawrence was very satisfied with Han Shao's surprise as he laughed and pulled Han Shao inside. Chapter 254, the use of killing Ara. When he heard that Phoebe's master was here, Han Shao was even more shocked. Phoebe had already reached the realm of a sword master at such a young age. In addition, when Aubrey had thought that he'd captured Phoebe at the Boost Merchant Guild, he'd still said that he needed to treat Phoebe well in order to prevent her master from getting angry. As Duke Ashburn's subordinate, what Aubrey did represented Duke Ashburn. It wasn't hard to figure out that Phoebe's master wasn't a simple person, since even Duke Ashburn, who held tremendous power in his hands, was so wary of him. When Han Shao walked beside Lawrence, he had sent his 3 young demons through the path in front of them, hoping that he could obtain a picture of the place underneath. However, as the young demons wandered about, Han Shao noticed that there were numerous boundaries everywhere. Some invisible boundaries even stopped the young demons' surveillance. It seemed like the defense of the place underneath the path was extraordinarily tight. The space underneath the Rose Garden is more than twice as large as it appears on the surface. I'll take you on a detailed tour later. We'll meet my master first. For now. Lawrence looked at Han Shao proudly as he revealed his prowess little by little, like he was trying to show Han Shao that cooperating with him was the correct decision. Han Shao felt that they were already 10 odd meters underground after traversing a narrow path. The dim area suddenly lit up and revealed 4 intersecting paths that came together where Han Shao and Lawrence stood. There were also bright lights that were placed on the side that illuminated the 4 paths as clear as day. Follow me. Lawrence walked to the left and he led the way for Han Shao. When they arrived in front of a white jade door, Lawrence used the scroll once again to open the boundary that was sealing the door. The door automatically opened after a flash of white light, and Lawrence led Han Shao in. Young Master Lawrence. All of a sudden, an extremely ugly old man with a face full of scars appeared and bowed towards Lawrence. The old man was covered in a bloody aura. No one knew how many people he had killed, but he was able to sense Han Shao and Lawrence the moment they appeared. Furthermore, the closer that they approached the old man, the thicker the stomach-crunching smell that was emanating from him became. Lawrence was clearly uncomfortable since the smile from his face disappeared. He said dryly, "Grandpa Ballins, is my master inside?" The weird old man called Ballins stood straight with a hunchback, then raised his head to gaze at Lawrence with his gray eyes and said remotely, "He's inside, but master is cultivating." "Then I'll wait outside for a bit." Lawrence had already pushed past Ballins with his response, and he quickly walked forwards like he was unwilling to be too close to the old man. The stone room in front of them was as large as a basketball court, with a lot of indentations where a lot of daily necessities were placed. However, The majority of them held numerous fine alcohols as if the room was a storage room for exquisite wine. Han Shao first surveyed his surroundings after entering the room, then moved his attention onto the old man Balans. The old man's face was covered in scars like if each one had been scratched on by something sharp. He looked as terrifying as a ghost from hell. Alongside the thick bloody aura that surrounded him, it was enough to give people an extremely powerful shock just by standing there. Not only was there blood on this person's hands, his strength was top tier. He was mostly likely an expert who was stronger than Phoebe by one rank. His aura wouldn't have been so powerful otherwise. A person who was at the Great Sword Master realm was not going to be a nobody no matter which country he lived in. The fact that he stayed in this secret room that doesn't see daylight in order to serve Lawrence's master really did surprise Han Shao somewhat. Brian, let's wait here for a bit. Lawrence had already scooted far away from Balans and he was calling out to Han Shao while sitting on a stone chair. You're not afraid of me? Just as Han Shao was about to leave, the old man named Balin suddenly looked at Han Shao and asked. Han Shao nodded and replied with a smile, of course, what is there to be afraid of? An interesting lad. Balin smirked as he carefully examined Han Shao. Then he frowned as if he sensed something which caused him to nod. No wonder you have a malicious aura around you that can only be felt if you carefully feel for it. From the looks of it, you shouldn't be even 25 yet. Your hands are dyed thick with blood at such a young age. You truly are a character. Even before Han Shao had broken into the bloodlust realm, the murderous aura had always accompanied him. He hadn't killed a lot of people before, it was just that his body absorbed a lot of specters at the forbidden place, so they continued to surround Han Shao, making it seem like his hands were also dyed in blood. Han Shao smiled, but he didn't say much. He merely nodded at Balins and walked past him, moving towards Lawrence. Young man, did you know that after killing a lot of people, the killing aura can be used to increase your strength? Balins was silent for a slight moment after Han Shao had left, then he suddenly shot a weird look at Han Shao. When he spoke, an intense wave of killing aura exploded out like a river that had been just undammed. All of a sudden the stomach-churning smell of blood spread out and it approached Han Shao with cold intent, like it was something physical. Oh God! Lawrence wailed, then he backed off in terror until his back was against the wall. Even then his forehead was still covered with cold sweat as he looked at Balins with a pale expression. However, Han Shao, who was closer to Balins, was not afraid. He casually cycled the magical yuan in his body, quickly causing the evil aura hidden in his body to rush out, furiously clashing with the physical killing aura from Balins. When the auras collided, sounds of collision could actually be heard in the air. Even some of the table and chairs in the room continuously trembled. What was more terrifying was that after the evil aura rushed out of Han Shao's body, it formed itself into spirals that were difficult to see with the eye and actually started to consume Balin's killing aura. When you said using killing aura, does it mean like this? Han Shao had a smile on his face when he plainly said this. While he spoke, he also stopped his magical yuan and the room returned to normal. Right now Han Shao had already undergone 3 months of closed-door cultivation in the Cemetery of Death. Adding on to the fact that he had absorbed the specters from the forbidden place, he had a much deeper understanding of the mnemonic arts than what Chu Kanglin had left behind. His manipulation of the evil aura in the bloodlust realm had also reached a level where he could do as he wished. If Han Shao wanted, he could absorb the killing aura in Balin's body like he had absorbed the specters from the forbidden place. Balins had had an indifferent expression until this point when he looked at Han Shao with a piercing gaze. Then he said with a trembling voice, "How is this possible? How could you use it even more familiarly than me? You also know how to use this sort of power?" Han Shao only understood at the moment Balin spoke. All swordsmen and knights cultivated fighting aura, but none of them could use evil aura and killing intent. However, Han Shao, who cultivated the mnemonic arts, was very well versed with using this type of strange power. That's why Balins had been surprised when Han Shao had showed off his abilities. "No, you didn't use fighting aura at all. How is that possible?" Shock, loss and confusion instantly filled Balin's heart. He stepped in front of Han Shao and glared at him with scorching eyes like he was fighting for Han Shao to give an answer. Han Shao knew that this was a bad situation to be caught in by now. He took a deep deep breath and explained with a smile, I cultivate a special type of martial technique. It's different to the cultivating of fighting aura that most people do. Okay Ballins, stay outside for now. Lawrence, you two can come in now. A benevolent voice seemed to ring out from the walls at that moment. Lawrence immediately pulled Han Shao towards him, then apologized to Ballins. Grandpa Ballins, my master has told us to go in. Let's chat later. The wall behind Han Shao split open at that moment and Lawrence pulled Han Shao in. After the two of them entered, the crack in the wall healed miraculously. There was an extremely wide training field past the wall. Apart from a few strangely shaped boulders, there were no other decorations. An old man sat on top of one of the boulders at the center of the field, and even though he had white hair and beard, he still looked very energized. The old man had a square face and seemed rather benevolent. He sat ramrod straight in a pure white warrior uniform. Even though he was sitting down, he looked extraordinary and seemed like he would be rather tall if he stood up. Teacher, Lawrence bowed and greeted the old man respectfully the moment he entered. The old man nodded, then he looked at Lawrence and said softly, rise. Lawrence straightened himself, then he pulled Han Shao to sit down on a piece of boulder. After the two of them took their places, Lawrence began, this is Brian, Phoebe's boyfriend. I mentioned him to you before. The old man's gaze immediately fell onto Han Shao after he heard Lawrence's words, and he carefully examined Han Shao carefully without speaking. After quite a while he finally nodded and said, although Phoebe is my youngest disciple, she has the most talent. Her future is unmeasurable. I hope she will inherit my martial techniques. You won't hold her back, right? Of course not, Han Shao replied with a smile that was neither reserved nor fearful. Instead he appeared rather laid back. Chapter 255. A powerful figure. How is little Phoebe recently? I heard she stayed with you at the Valley of Sunshine for a while and did some interesting things. The old man squinted, asking slowly and softly. She returned safely to the Empire from the Valley of Sunshine, but her current situation doesn't seem very good. From the way the old man said it, he must have been unclear about Phoebe's situation, so Han Shao couldn't help but explain. What happened? The old man frowned, worried. Master, it's like this. Lawrence quickly opened his mouth to describe what happened, then smiled dryly. You already know little senior sister doesn't like to trouble others. She didn't even tell me about something like this. This old fellow Ashburn is getting more and more unbridled. He knows Phoebe is my disciple, yet he dared to act so presumptuously. It seems he and I are due for a conversation. The old man coldly snorted, his face angry. Seeing the old man become angry, Lawrence wasn't the least bit anxious and instead revealed a slight chuckle as he said hastily, Master, you know already how my father's health is getting worse. Right now my brothers are all prepared. The Duke spares no effort for Charles, and he dared to not give you face by doing such things. Han Shao kept silent, his eyes carefully examining the two's faces. When he suddenly understood something, he drew in his presence. The old man chuckled and gazed thoughtfully at Lawrence, nodding. I have my own plans. Alright, let's temporarily not talk about these things today. Since you came to visit me, did you bring any good wine? Of course I couldn't let you down no matter what. Lawrence laughed heartily as he took out a crystal jade-like bottle that contained blood red wine. He respectfully handed it over and said, this is a specialty from a small town in the Casey Empire named Redbud Blood. Master, please try it. Having seen many kinds of wine while waiting in the hall, Han Shao understood that Lawrence's master must be a wine lover. Now it looked indeed so. When his thoughts reached that point, Han Shao suddenly remembered the good wine produced by the dwarves in the dark forest. He thought for a bit and took out a bottle of wine from his space ring, respectfully giving it to the old man as he spoke with a smile. This bottle of wine was brewed by the dwarves of the dark forest. Perhaps it isn't that precious, but it's much stronger than some of the good wines in the Empire. When Han Shao said so, the old man looked at him with interest before taking the wine bottle. He tried shaking it, listened to the sound and laughed happily. What a thoughtful child. The dwarves brew naturally good wine that isn't any inferior. I've had a taste before. Waving his hand, the old man took the two bottles of good wine from Han Shao and Lawrence and said, all right, I've remembered Lawrence's matter. You all leave, I'll drink first. Han Shao was surprised, not knowing what was happening. However, Lawrence winked at him, indicating that Han Shao shouldn't ask so much and just leave with him. Afterwards Lawrence took Han Shao out to the hall where Balin stood. When Balin saw Han Shao appear, his eyes gleamed as he stared at the latter, saying, "Can you tell me how you understood to use murderous aura? It's a part of the martial arts I cultivate. I have no way of explaining it to you, sorry." Han Shao honestly replied of course he couldn't speak of his demonic magic method. "Grandpa Balins, we're leaving first. I'll trouble Grandpa to take care of the rose garden." Lawrence's steps suddenly became much quicker as he passed by Balins. He evidently couldn't adapt to the pungent smell of blood on the latter's body. "Alright, you're Brian?" Balin suddenly asked while Han Shao and Lawrence headed back the way they came. Pausing, Han Shao turned his head and glanced at Balins as he politely answered, "That's right." Balins nodded his head and curved his lips, saying, "We'll meet again. I like the smell on your body." Hey, that evil killing intent." Han Shao was stunned. He was about to say something when Lawrence dragged him away. They quickly left that area with a few steps. Under Lawrence's guidance the two followed the same way back to the quiet hall above. Letting out a breath, Lawrence explained, "My master is Carl Ascot. He has the strength of a sacred sword master. His outstanding contributions have given him a high reputation in the Empire. Master can go in and out of the palace directly, and my father has great trust in him. Even though I'm his disciple, he doesn't clearly support me, which puzzles me greatly. But I know he really dotes on my junior sister Phoebe. Even this rose garden used to belong to the Boost Merchant Guild. Master shares a past with Phoebe's father. For some reason, after Phoebe's father passed away, my master managed this rose garden, then handed it over to me. Grandpa Balins used to be a very famous killer, and Old Lucky is actually his direct disciple. I don't know why he follows my master. The smell of blood on him is so heavy you can imagine how many people he'd killed. I can't control the urge to vomit every time I get near him, so I always try to stay away. Otherwise, if I really vomit, I think he'd be very displeased." Even though Lawrence was Carl's disciple, he hadn't focused on learning martial arts but instead concentrated various strategies and military abilities, possibly due to his identity as the prince. Therefore his strength wasn't very powerful. It was normal for him to feel discomfort in front of people like Balins. Although he had known early on that Lawrence's master must be extraordinary, Han Shao was extremely shocked after Lawrence confirmed his identity. As a member of the Dark Mantle plus his own deliberate research, Han Shao had a decent understanding of the dark side of the Empire. Naturally he had heard of the thunderous name Carl Ascot. Carl Ascot was born a commoner but was a heaven-defying genius. He'd set a record with his graduation speed from the Babylon Academy of Swordsmanship. He had roamed the mainland with the strength of a senior swordsman and fought hundreds of fights in various countries, increasing his fame quickly. He'd already had the strength of a great swordmaster by the time he'd returned to the Lancelot Empire. After accepting the invitation of the king, he taught at the Babylon Academy of Swordsmanship as the dean. When war broke out in the Lancelot Empire, not only did Carl cultivate numerous talents for the Empire, he'd also personally defeated several provocative figures from enemy countries. At that point, where his heroic fame was like the sun at its peak, he retired from being the dean of the Academy of Swordsmanship and went to train in the deepest part of the Dark Forest for a decade. When the Empire faced the threat of invasion and was on the brink of defeat facing the Casey Empire, Carl appeared with the strength of a divine swordmaster and killed 3 great swordmasters of the Casey Empire. This inspired the morale of the Lancelot Empire and helped it win the battle. Many years later, all of the citizens and even the king regarded Carl Ascot as the protector of the Empire. Even though he didn't have an official position, he could influence the king's decisions. Several of his direct disciples held great power in the government or the military. "So it's him, no wonder," Han Shao exclaimed after going over this information in his head. "I took you to see him this time so he'd know of you. As long as you leave a good impression, he'll speak a few words in front of my father." "You aren't far from a prosperous future then." Lawrence spoke sincerely in a prudent manner. "I understand what you mean." Han Shao smiled, nodding. "Let's go, the main thing is done. Now I'll take you to play to your heart's content." Once Lawrence saw that Han Shao had understood, he no longer said anything else. He dragged the latter out of this quiet, deserted place to the most crowded and lively area of the rose garden. "Young Master Lawrence, do you need a separate room?" A man dressed in a butler's attire who looked to be the middle-aged steward of the Rose Garden asked smilingly after he saw Lawrence. "Of course I'll use the room I usually take. You helped me arrange the best service for my good friend to enjoy," Lawrence instructed in a straightforward manner. Suddenly Lawrence paled. He looked back behind Han Shao as murderous intent flashed in his previously smiling face. "Hey Lawrence, what a pleasant surprise!" A seemingly cheerful sound of greeting resounded from behind Han Shao. Turning around, Han Shao saw a luxuriously dressed youth of roughly 25 or 26 years old. He came over with several flower seekers who was obviously noble at a single glance. This young man was a little taller than Lawrence and had a handsome and tough look. As he walked, he exuded the awe-inspiring momentum of someone in a high position. He was obviously the leader of this flower-seeking group. Those flower seekers looked at him with flattering smiles and even lowered their postures, which set off his noble position even more. "HMPH, I certainly don't want to see you." Lawrence's complexion didn't look too good as he coldly looked at this man. Hey Lawrence, you're getting more and more impolite nowadays. According to the Empire's rules, mustn't you at least offer your greetings when you see me?" The tall healthy man looked mockingly at Lawrence with a smile that wasn't a smile. His face twitching, Lawrence glared resentfully at this person, then grimaced helplessly. "Greetings to His Royal Highness the First Prince."